All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Greetings. We are live from Washington, D.C. In fact, just 21 minutes. I checked it because Kim asked how long would it take you to get there. 21 minutes from the White House and from the seat of power. We come to you here. Washington, D.C. is abuzz with what happened last night with the State of the Union address. State of the Union address that was punctuated by way more back and forth and heckling. It was like a Philadelphia Eagles game for a couple of minutes there, wasn't it? Welcome, Albert. Welcome, Kim McAllister. And welcome all to the Big Mark Thompson Show live. I'm Mark, but joined by some really cool people today. Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Hiltzik from the LA Times will be joining. Also, John Rothman, the sexy beast that was KGO, and now he is much in demand for political analysis. We'll be here to talk about everything that went down last night with the Biden speech. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, speaking of sexy, rock and roll Dan Ashley from ABC 7. Let's get it on, everyone. Yeah. So the realities of the political realities, I should say, of much of what was visited throughout the State of the Union address, we'll speak to with John Rothman. That'll be bottom of the hour, and also a bit with Michael Hiltzik. That'll be in a few minutes. So I'm going to leave a lot of the substance aside, except to say that I thought Biden was impressive. Biden was looser at the lectern than a lot of presidents who have given that address. And I don't just mean looseness in terms of his general oratory. I mean looseness in terms of his back and forth with being heckled. I mean, this would have been unheard of in the past. But in the new America, you know, America 4.0, which is all about smack talking and getting your Instagram moment, that America, Biden held his own. And then, and this is something we'll play for you in a bit, he turned the heckling around Social Security and Medicare, he turned that into a win for the moment. I mean, he made the GOP, I mean, who really, I mean, I'm not suggesting that everyone to a person was doing this, but let's face it, they were a feisty bunch and they were doing everything sort of short of throwing stuff in a couple of moments. He had them standing and applauding the idea of maintaining Social Security and Medicare around seniors. It was that rallying cry that they couldn't sit through. I mean, it was just, he really owned them in that moment. So was that a spontaneous thing that he did? Was it just his looseness, as I say, playing itself out? Or was it something that had been set as a trap? I don't know, but it worked. And Biden was impressive. Biden, and then, as I say, we'll get into more specifics with John and Michael. Biden told a populist message. Populist messages are going to work, particularly when you feel so much of America is disenfranchised, unhappy. I understand in polling, Biden, the economy, what's your personal state of things, none of those things poll favorably. So when you come out against everything from the banks to the cable companies to resort fees to, you know, these are all things that he touched on. These are real life things, right? The pharmaceutical companies, we could talk about that, you know, in maybe in the conversation with John, because I think there's a certain one-dimensional quality to calling them out. I think the pharmaceutical companies, we detailed a bit of it yesterday, have captured the FDA. And I don't know that much has changed under Biden, but anyway, be that as it may, those messages are populist. And you now begin in a party that doesn't message well. I think the Democrats don't message as effectively as the Republicans. Now, maybe the Republicans just message so well because they scream louder. But what I'd suggest is all of a sudden, last night, effectively, you had a president painting the opposing party, and I think fairly painting them as a party of the wealthy, as a party that doesn't really care about everyman issues. And so when I heard Biden last night, I was impressed. And I'm not a Biden backer, as you know. I think Rothman is much more of a Biden backer. We can ask him when he gets here. But not because I think Biden's a bad guy. I just feel that he's an institutional politician. He's not the sort that inspires much in me. Although I will say, give the guy credit. I mean, he has made some positive changes and done some positive things. And he faces pretty much an unprecedented challenge when you look at what's happened in Ukraine on the heels of what's happening with COVID. I mean, this guy came into office without much going for him in terms of momentum. Contrast that to Donald Trump, who came into office with a lot of momentum. I mean, the Obama administration had really set the table for him, and all he had to do was, order off the menu. So all of that said, I thought it was a good night for Joe Biden. I'd be curious to know what you think, and we will. And if you'd like, I'd be curious to include any questions you might have for Michael Hiltzik and also for John Rothman. And Hiltzik's here to discuss a couple of other things as well. Kim, some quick thoughts from you.
Did you see the thing that happened between Santos and Romney?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned it.
Because that was, girl, you just woo.
Now, this is to me an easily read lip reading back and forth. We're going to show it to you. I want you to see Mitt Romney walking in, and you understand these legislators, they jockey for position and sometimes get there hours ahead of time to get down into these front row positions. So Santos had to stake that out, the way you stake out a good seat at a parade. You know what I mean? Get there hours ahead of time. You make the kids go to the bathroom before you get there, all of that. Santos set up his little perch. And so Romney, noticing that he was there to essentially be a very high-profile greeter, Santos, really called him out. And if you read the lips, you can see him say, "It's embarrassing, it's embarrassing." Watch this encounter between Santos and Romney. "I believe it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You shouldn't be up here." I don't know what Santos is saying, Kim. I can't read those lips.
No, but watch as he speaks to the back of Romney.
Right. No, he's saying
turns
something
around.
odd.
Romney passes. Santos keeps talking to the back of his head. It's like, uh-oh, that's an exchange.
Yeah. But
and then
Romney
he turns around and looks at him again. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, here it is. Look, you're embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. He says it 4 times. It's embarrassing that you're up here. I mean, first of all, can I say Romney is very handsome. How old is Romney, Albert? Can you let's guess how old Romney is. Let's guess how old Romney is. You think he's
a very distinguished older fellow.
Yeah, he Romney looks like the guy you'd cast as Romney in the movie. You know what I mean? That's what he looks like. He looks like an actor.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I'm going to say he's 68. Is that right? 70?
75. 75 is the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's born in 1947.
Yeah. I mean, he's a distinguished man. I mean, our politics diverge, but I'll give him credit for really having some principles. I mean, let's face it, he voted for removing Donald Trump. But anyway, he called out, and you could see it in that lip reading moment. He called out Santos to his face. I give him credit.
I must have watched that video. It's just a short one. We just saw it over and over again, trying to figure out exactly what he was saying. And for a while, I thought, you're right. It seemed like embarrassing embarrassment. I thought that I could pull out those words. But after the speech, he talked to reporters, and there's some bunch of articles this morning. One of them in USA Today. Apparently, he said, "I called him a sick puppy for lying." Telling the lawmaker, "You don't belong here." So I guess we should be able to pull out, "You don't belong here. You're a sick puppy."
Well,
That's what he was saying.
you don't belong here. I saw it. You're a sick puppy. I didn't see. He definitely said embarrassing or embarrassment 4 times without question. But let's look at it again. Here it is. Oh, this is him being interviewed after. Sorry.
Why did you say that to him? I didn't expect that he'd be standing there trying to shake hands with every senator and the president of the United States. It's, given the fact that he's under ethics investigation, he should be sitting in the back row and staying quiet instead of parading in front of the president and people coming into the room.
Did he respond to you?
Look, he says he that he embellished his record. Look, embellishing is saying you got an A when you got an A minus. Lying is saying you graduated from a college you didn't even attend. And he shouldn't be in Congress. And they're going to go through the process and hopefully get him out. And but he shouldn't be there. And if he had any shame at all, he wouldn't be there.
Why did you make a point to say that, though? I mean, it was kind of out of your way to.
Well, he was standing right there in the aisle, shaking hands with everybody.
Did he respond to you?
He may have. I didn't hear anything he said.
That Kevin McCarthy is not calling to resign.
Yes.
Anyway, that was the sideshow, but that is going on, and he is under. I mean, I'm seeing this back and forth in this chat. I'm sorry. Well, I'll deal with that. Seems like the sideshow about the sideshow, but I think the Santos thing is notable because as I was mentioning, it's sort of a new America up on the Hill. There is much more noise being made by a few people, and that's becoming acceptable. And the idea that you could lie your way into office and then just the other thing about Santos that you need to know, in addition to the fact that he's lied his way into office, I mean, that stuff it's sort of manifestly clear, is that he's not doing any kind of client services for the people who are in his district. A lot of people who need things done need it done by their representative in Congress. Apparently, he's doing almost none of that. That office is all concerned with damage control, with spin, with getting him into things. He's a guy who BS'd his way into office, and now he's just BSing around. He's not doing any of the work, minimal work, I might add, much of the time, that members of the House have to do. All right, I want to get this guy on. He's terrific. He's a friend of the show, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. We made him, if you missed it last time, actually show us the Pulitzer Prize, not because we didn't believe it, but because we wanted to make sure he could still get his hands on it, like he hadn't lost it under something. He did produce it. And he is so very impressive as a business writer in the LA Times. Great takes on so many things going on in this country and the world. A warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for Michael Hiltzik, please, everyone. Yes, Michael Hiltzik. Look at you, you handsome devil. All right, I want to. I'm here in Washington D.C., Michael. You can feel the undertow of lobby peddling, influence peddling with every day. I was saying yesterday, it's a better city now. Better is not the word. It's more crowded now. But when I was growing up here, it felt kind of like a small town with growing pains. The downtown was drab and ugly. Now everything is really, bougie. I think it really is a lot of that lobby money and the military industrial complex, which is now grown.
It's always been said that Washington is one of the very few places in America that is absolutely recession-proof. And every time there's a change of administrations or a change in Congress, the money flows in basically to line up with the new guys or the new gals.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So I wanted to get your take on the State of the Union last night. And then I wanted to follow up on one specific thing because you did a column on Social Security. and the rumblings around rolling back Social Security or altering Social Security. I want to get to that in a second. First, your general takes.
Well, I think Biden, did what people need him to do, which is to put the accomplishments and the legislation and programs that he's put in place over the last 2 years front and center, so that first of all, this is the right comeback against Republicans who claim that he's either done nothing or done terrible damage to the republic. So I think he did very well, and everybody seems to appreciate that he engaged these clowns in the peanut gallery face to face. And I think if you're on Twitter, and I'm still on Twitter, you're inundated by clips of Kevin McCarthy basically telling the loudmouths in his caucus to shut up or shush, I guess. And then you've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, you just have to laugh. I guess she thought she was going to be, that she was going to really stick it to the Democrats by saying the choice today is between normal and crazy. So, you go on Twitter and there are just, scores and scores of clips juxtaposing her saying that with the image of Marjorie Taylor Greene standing up and shouting and just making an idiot out of her, a crazy idiot. So I think actually it was, a very good moment to put on display the real difference between the administration in the White House and now in the Senate, and this ludicrous clown show in the House of Representatives. So,
I
was jazzed.
Yeah, the House is just so much bigger, and so I guess in its even in its numbers, it can include many more in that clown show many more clowns than maybe the Senate. Although the Senate has its share. I love that you mentioned the Republican response articulated by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because I felt as though she wasn't really responding to the speech we just heard. She wasn't really, she was sort of doing a Donald Trump style, aren't the woke Democrats so awful for America? They're crazy with their woke socialism. Biden really didn't pay any lip service to wokeness. I didn't.
It's obvious that that her response, like I think most of the opposition party responses to the State of the Union, hers was written well in advance of the speech. There's no evidence that she listened to or read the speech in advance. She wasn't responding to anything that, she was basically mouthing the same shibboleths, that the Republicans have been mouthing for a couple of years now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now I want to ask you about Social Security. It was a centerpiece last night. It's not just Rick Scott. I mean, there are real rumblings. George Bush tried to do this. Try to what is it? Put the flag up and what is it? Run the flag up the pole and see who salutes. He tried that move with the privatization notion about Social Security during his administration.
In fact, I wrote a whole book about George Bush's privatization plan, which was convenient because I had it, right at my right hand here at my desk when I wanted to take on Mike Pence's just, imbecilic argument that we should do this. It's inexplicable that after Bush's plan crashed and burned in 2005, that Pence would revive it now. The situation is the same. He's reviving it. And Bush promoted it at a point when the stock market had taken a crash. And here's Pence doing it after the stock market lost 20% or more in a year in 2022. And he's trying to sell the American public on the virtues of essentially investing for themselves in their little measly personal accounts in the stock market. There's just there's no explanation. There's no
just to be clear. Again, what was suggested by Bush and was suggested by Pence, which is what Michael's talking about, was that you could take a portion of this money that has been, salted away by Social Security that you're donating to this Social Security account that you're not going to see until you're 60, whatever. You could actually take a part of that, and instead you could invest it in the market. And so your point is that both of these suggestions, the Bush suggestion of this thing I'm talking about and the Pence suggestion, were ill-timed, if not ridiculous, on their face.
Yeah. Well, they were, right. As you said, they were not only ill-timed, but they make no sense as basically as a counter program to Social Security, because they cannot, private accounts that are invested in, by, a certain amount per year or per quarter by individuals, it simply cannot do what Social Security does, which is provide a lifetime retirement stipend that is inflation protected, and provide an insurance policy for families whose breadwinners die early before they reach Social Security collecting age or get disabled some point in life. As I pointed out, if you have a private account, the most of the growth in it occurs in the later years. If you have a private account and you die in year 10, which is the point at which most people become vested in Social Security, you'd have enough to keep you sustained for a few months, not for a lifetime, and not inflation protected, and certainly not as an insurance policy. So it's a scam. It's a scam.
Well, it's a scam with a gift, right, Michael? It's a gift to Wall Street.
It's a gift to Wall Street. Wall Street characters have always been the ones who are promoting this, and they do it by saying, well, the stock market returns 8% a year over inflation. And as I pointed out, that's true if you have like maybe 100-year horizon, which most of us do not have. And it's misleading anyway, because it doesn't mean you're getting 8% every year. You might get, if you're lucky, 6% on average over your working life. And then in year 45, when you're about to retire, you take a 20% hit because the stock market has got,
Right.
Who can possibly think that this makes sense?
No, it's funny. I always, when people talk about the market, you should always be in the market. The market's the way I used to. I go, it all depends when the music stops for you. The music stops when you need the money. And when the music stops, if it's down, as you say, Michael Hiltzik, then you've lost. I mean, it's just that simple. By the way, imbecilic, strong, and I think unprecedented ding word. So I want to ding it.
So right, it's between that and cretinous, which is,
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yes.
So tomorrow, President Biden's going to Florida to talk about Medicare and Social Security. And that's a big, a good place to talk about it, with a bunch of retirees who really, are dependent on those programs. Do you think he's kind of beating it up at this point now? The Republicans have said, no, that's not all of us. That's not us. Do you think it pays him off to keep talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's something that he needs to talk about constantly. And my Social Security sources, which is the entire Social Security advocacy community, and it's a big community and very smart and knowledgeable, are constantly fretting, and I think they are right to do so, that if the Republicans ever get power, they're going to take a hatchet to this program, because they've talked about doing this. And the fact that they're saying, they've always said, no, we're not going to cut out, what they actually say specifically, which I think is really dishonest and just awful, is they say, well, if you are retired or near retirement, we're not going to touch you. But for younger people, those we're going to, have real reforms. And the point I've always made is, if you think the reform is good, then you do it for everybody. And if you don't, and if it's not good, then you say you're going to protect the older people, who are the ones who vote most reliably. and you're going to say, we're going to hold you harmless. We're just going to screw your kids and your grandkids. So, you're okay, but everybody else is. Too bad about that.
Here's an interesting, Chris says the elderly should have had more children to help them financially. That's how humans did it for millennia. That's the answer. Have the most expensive thing you can possibly dream up, which is a child. Have a lot of them. That's the way to secure
and
your
hope that
future.
they make more money than you've made. That's the other,
right. Michael Hiltzik, in our last few minutes, I wanted to ask you about a column I think you just did, which is about water and California. I just want to step away from the State of the Union. We'll get back to it with John Rothman, bottom of the hour. But tell me about the water wars that are developing in the West that, they reflect this 20-year drought cycle, or maybe it's even longer than that. But what's happening?
Well, yeah, we're in a long drought cycle, and this is a cycle that, given global warming, we're not sure we're ever going to get out of. The point I wanted to make in the column that ran today was that the conflicts, we're talking about the 7 states of the Colorado River Basin, of which California is the largest state and the largest beneficiary of Colorado River water, but also has the smallest amount of acreage in the basin. So it's always been, the other 6 states have always resented California. And this is another subject that I wrote a book about. I wrote a book, The History of the Building of Hoover Dam, and went into all this. And the fact of the matter is that the 6 other states of the basin have always been very, very wary and suspicious of California because of California's huge voracious appetite for water. And the fact of the matter is that Hoover Dam got built because of California farmers who needed it built for flood control and irrigation, and they pushed it through Congress, over the concerns of these other states, and they ended up with an agreement that basically gives California the most water, but also provides guaranteed water for the other states. Well, now we're in a different world from what we were in 1922, when the 7 states reached their interstate compact under the guidance of then Commerce Secretary Herbert Hoover, and 1928, when the dam was authorized by Congress. It's just a different situation. And as I've pointed out on more than one occasion, the basis for the apportionment of water from the Colorado was always based on a lie. And it was a lie that was promoted by Hoover during the negotiations, when he basically he exaggerated the amount of water that was available from the Colorado, so that he could persuade all 7 states that there'd be enough water for them no matter what California did. Now, the bill for that is now coming due, because the river has never produced as much water as the compact anticipated, and it's producing less and less and less as the demands have grown. So the 7 states have to come together. They have to reconsider some of the guarantees that were made in the 1920s, but do it in a way that acknowledges that there's a lot of history here and a lot of animosity. I talked about the great Arizona-California War of 1934, when Arizona basically commandeered a ferry boat and tried to attack the construction site for Parker Dam that California was putting up. And the LA Times, we actually sent a war correspondent to the river to chronicle this ludicrous, this sort of Gilbert and Sullivan event. But there's a lot of history here, and it's got to be sort of acknowledged.
Well, and I think the other thing, I suppose, and you've mentioned it here, is just a tremendous dependence that agriculture has on this water. And so that's economy, that's legitimate lobby, and it explains why California is slow walking any participation to any sort of compact, doesn't it?
Well, the agricultural community, they've gotten the most water, and they've paid the least for it, and they've also swanked around as though they're the only stakeholders in this who count. So so they complain about water being used to preserve fisheries, They complain about the water that's being moved to urban areas. And basically, there are three main claimants for this water and all water in the West, and that's the agriculture, urban users, and the environment. And their needs have to be acknowledged and accommodated. Agriculture can do more with better technology for irrigation and not planting tree fruits like almonds and pistachios, which need water, which you can't deprive of water ever. Stop planting alfalfa, which requires huge amounts of land and is very thirsty. Find something else to grow. Urban users in California, we've been very good at conserving, although, when we get a lot of rain, we stop conserving and we start wasting it. But there's a lot of give in the system if we do better conservation, more recycling, better irrigation, and we should have enough water to preserve the fisheries and the environment. But we have to acknowledge that we have these conflicting claims and that they all have to have a seat at the table, but they all have to cooperate with each other.
Right. There have to be modifications.
Like they're the only game in town.
Right. Everybody's demand list has to be modified. You can read Michael Hiltzik in the LA Times. Also, now with the big World Wide Web, you can read Michael Hiltzik all over the world. It's very exciting. And I do love your stuff, and I love your takes, and I love that you are in touch with us. And thank you for being with us today. The great Michael Hiltzik, everyone. How about it?
With your iron rod.
Smash it. Smash the like button for Michael Hiltzik with your iron rod.
And sorry for the Michigan sweatshirt, but my son went to Michigan, and he knows that. The last sweatshirt he gave me was worn out, so he gave me a new one.
Don't apologize for what is a deliberate shout out to Michigan. We know what you're doing.
Michigan got my money. Colgate, where you and I went, got my father's money. So
yeah, we went to Colgate. Hiltzik and I went to the same university. So very cool, Michael Hiltzik. Be well. We'll talk soon. All right. See you, Michael Hiltzik. Wow. Very, very cool. Sting me, Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for being here. Thank you for supporting this show. We are on the air.
Iron rod.
Damn straight. Live from Washington, D.C., just minutes from the White House. I know. It's incredible. I grew up in this very house. My dad is in the hospital. It's been a very rough go. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm with him every night, and it's an emotional and difficult time. And I will tell you that you've all been great supporters. And we're trying to keep the show going live every day for you because I want to show you that we're committed to it. And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy visiting with you. And we love bringing you information and some great minds. And in that spirit, a familiar great mind joins us right after Kim's news. The wonderful, the generous, and the insanely sexy John Rothman. That's right. So we will do that, and we will break out in true post-mortem fashion the State of the Union message from last night. Yeah. Smash the like button. Kim's news next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There it is. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Let's talk about this earthquake in the Turkey region. This major earthquake could have long-term health impacts, is what we are hearing. Spokesperson for the World Health Organization telling Sky News it is their mission to prevent those injured by the disaster from dying by providing health services quickly, but they say the death toll is now above 11,000 people. President Vladimir Putin of Russia may have, this is one of those may have stories, may have made the decision to shoot down a Malaysia Airlines flight in 2014. Dutch investigators intercepted telephone conversations by Russian government officials. They said there were strong indications that Putin personally gave the missile to separatists, but they haven't gathered enough evidence yet. The Memphis City Council moving forward now with several new proposals following the beating death of Tyree Nichols at the hands of police. Among the proposals, ending the routine traffic stops or requiring them only in marked law enforcement vehicles. 2 resolutions and 6 ordinances will require additional votes by the council in order to take effect. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan set to be deposed in Samantha Markle's defamation suit against her half-sister. Markle's lawsuit alleges Meghan lied about her in a 2021 interview with Oprah. Meghan filed a motion last fall to stop deposition, but the presiding Florida judge dismissed it. LeBron James's jersey from his record-setting scoring game expected to sell for more than $3 million. James passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the NBA's all-time scoring record against the Oklahoma City Thunder in Los Angeles Tuesday night. If the item hits the auction block, director of sports auctions at Heritage Auctions, Chris Ivey, said that jersey is just as historic as it is desirable.
I saw one picture. I know this is 2 big moments. With Michael Jordan setting the scoring record, and then with LeBron setting the scoring record, and they put them right up against each other.
Yeah.
And this is Jordan's record set pre-cell phone camera. Okay, and then of course LeBron's. Everybody's got a cell phone camera, and in one case you have in LeBron's case, virtually everyone in the arena with their cell phone camera up. And it's amazing to me because you imagine paying $3,000 for a seat that close to the floor, and then you don't actually take the moment in yourself. You instead have it on yourself. I understand being compelled to record it, but by the same token, you want to be in that moment as well. It was just wild to see the 2 up against each other. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Albert. So this is Jordan hitting the record bucket, right, Albert? And that is LeBron hitting the record. But can you see all of the cell phones everybody has up in there? It's really just a wild contrast.
We have a friend in common, Brian Pelletier, who is a former producer at Station X, who wrote, "Call me old-fashioned, but there's a 0% chance I would have my phone out for this. Grainy phone camera footage of a historic moment from 50 rows back isn't the same as having it burned into your memory because you were totally focused on it as it happened."
Yeah. I mean, it just is a quality of the reflexive nature of the technology now. We just want to record everything. We want to take a picture of everything. Right. Everything from our entree to, one of the most historic moments in sports. So there you go.
Okay, so this happened. What is it? Those are acorns. This chimney in Glen Ellen didn't work. So they thought, all right, got to call the chimney sweep out, double check, see what's going on. Well, they cut into the wall because they thought something was blocking. But the more they cut into the wall in this house in Glen Ellen, the more acorns poured out. In the end, 8 hefty bags full of heavy acorns were pulled out of this house. Why? These little woodpecker guys, they're just storing their food in there. Apparently, they've been to this house before. They have this the situation where it's generational, where once you find a good tree to store your food in, you keep going back, your kids keep going back, and their kids keep going back. And that's what they were doing, as woodpeckers want to do, right? So the last owner of this house in Glen Ellen had realized that the acorns were being stored behind some trim at the top of the roof. So they wrapped the whole house in vinyl, which left these little guys nowhere else but to drop the acorns in the chimney.
Aww.
And so, so the chimney is, it is full of acorns. Let's take a look. Full of acorns. Again, the more they cut in to the wall, the more acorns are pouring out of this thing. In the end, it's like the room is full of acorns. The chimney sweep said, "I've never seen anything like this." So
Albert, I've never seen anything like this.
I've never seen anything like this. Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they cleaned it up. I don't know what they're going to have to do to prevent these little guys.
There's never been anything like this.
Thank you. Finally. All
exactly. I mean, can you blame them? They're just doing what
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. Okay. We got it now.
It was wrong. It was
Anyway.
stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Okay, enough. We got it. All right, thank you.
So that happened in
And I
Glen
wanted
Ellen.
to apologize to the Asian community. The Asian
Stop with the drops. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Nick's Extreme Pest Control in Santa Rosa says to the Press Democrat, the more acorns I pulled from the wall, the more there were. It felt like it was never going to end. Anyway.
Wow.
This report
wild.
sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, you got to call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL and MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Greetings live from Washington, D.C. this week. And you don't need to call 888-TAX-DEAL right now. He's here with us. That's right, the tax ninja. He's Steve Moskowitz, everyone. How about it for Steve Moskowitz? I have John Rothman. Rothman is waiting in the green room. It's quite the half hour. Moskowitz with the strong take on the growing tax season. What balls do we keep our eyes on as we begin to launch side hustle businesses, as we have to file taxes? I mean, I think one of your superpowers is that you don't just do straight taxes, Steve.
That's right, because a lot of people say, "Oh, Steve, we know you for getting people out of trouble or audits, or if they can't pay their taxes or ERC." But do you do regular tax returns? And the answer is, well, of course we do. Before I was a tax attorney, I was a CPA. That's how we started the firm, and we do the tax returns. But we don't do regular tax returns the regular way. We don't just move the numbers from one place to another. We look to see if there's any tax benefits. We get to know somebody, and almost like seeing a physician when you're healthy, he or she gets the baseline. So if you call up one day and you say your heart is pounding, the physician can say, like, well, that's because your fiance said yes to your marriage proposal, or, oh my God, I'll meet you in the emergency room, call the ambulance.
Okay. Yeah, I think of all the times that in the past I thought I didn't have a tax problem until I get flagged after the fact. But even if you do get flagged, there's still a lot of wiggle room, and that's why you need an advocate.
The laws are there for everybody. There's the courts have all kinds of varying interpretations. And where most people suffer is they never get flagged. They just pay more taxes than they have to because they didn't know they were entitled to this. I can't begin to tell you, Mark, how many times I hear from them, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Why didn't my last person do that?" I said, "Well, that's why you're here." And that's where the real problem is. You go along every year and people say, "Well, they got a refund every year. They never got audited," and that's good. But it's not good that you didn't take advantage of things to which you're legally entitled and pay more than you had to.
It's so true. So true. I mean, Steve, it just makes sense on so many levels. I really want people to reach out to you, particularly through this coming tax season. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. That's how you reach Steve. And you can talk to him the way I talk to him. Just the great thing, I think, is that he's just an unassuming, his entire firm is dedicated to that kind of unassuming style. So 888-TAX-DEAL, just tell him your situation, and he will help you. You can also find him online, MoskowitzLLP.com, Moskowitz, MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, let's talk next hour. Thanks for being
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kim.
All right.
Bye.
Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, without any further delay, although the anticipation has only made me love him more. How about it for the great John Rothman, everyone? John Rothman. Yes.
Yeah.
Look at you sexy devil. John.
Well, all I can tell you is after Kim's acorn story and the LeBron James jersey. By the way, I do this complimentary. I do this because Mark and Kim are such great people. I don't charge. But if you wanted to buy the jersey and give it to me for my son Joel, he'd be thrilled.
Oh my God! Well, I do want to. I just don't have the money to. So
$3 million.
Yeah,
it's the tax savings from working with Steve Moskowitz.
That's it. Moskowitz might be able to ninja it somehow, but Rothman, what did you make of the State of the Union? Do you want to let me get a couple of general Rothman comments, Albert, and then we can play a couple of clips? Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds good.
I thought Joe Biden hit a home run. I thought he was effective. He was powerful. What was great is he could go off script and still have that repartee with the Republicans. I thought the fact that at the very beginning, he was able to get an ovation complimenting Speaker McCarthy while at the same time talking about his own activities. I mean, I got to tell you honestly, he could not have gone better for the president. I'll tell you what I really watched last night, though. I watched Speaker McCarthy. I was looking at his face the whole time, and you could see how uncomfortable he was. And you even saw him do something that was amazing. He went, shh, to the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seemed to me that Joe Biden scored and scored big. And if he decides to run for re-election, if that's the decision, and I think it will be, he's going to be a formidable candidate.
It's interesting that you talk about that shush moment, because prior to the State of the Union message, as you know, McCarthy was on record as saying we're not going to have the same sort of, demonstrations of anger or just, these outward, we'd call it heckling, really, if it were a club.
You can see what control he has over his Republicans, which is why it took him so long to get elected speaker.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. And, John, it is a new day. I was saying, in the new America, which celebrates sort of smack talk and Instagram moments and owning the other person in some back and forth. I feel like the days of real decorum around the State of the Union message, they may be gone.
I think it depends on the president. It depends on who is in charge. But I can tell you that it's very clear that Speaker McCarthy does not control his members. And I thought the fact that you had the kind of hooting and booing and all the rest. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was interviewed this morning on CNN, I believe. And I was amazed that not only was she not apologetic, she was proud of her activity.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's all about owning the other. She had her moment. She got her cutaway. How many other members of the House get that cutaway, get the anticipation cutaway, then the payoff cutaway? I mean, it's about media time, John. It strikes me that it's just
no question about it.
Yeah.
So, in short, I think Joe Biden did very well. I think the Republicans failed. And a quick comment about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It was a canned speech. There is no real response to the president when you have a speech pre-written. I thought there was nothing that was particularly interesting or edifying about it. She was talking to her base. She was not talking to the American people. And one thing we should really rethink is the response, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, because when the Democrats have been in that position, they've had an equally tough time. I was an old debater, and I can tell you we would have taken notes on what was said, hit the 10 key points, and responded, which should be an easy thing for a member of Congress to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. By the way, edifying is a ding word, please.
With Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her whole normal or crazy thing, do you think she's setting the stage maybe for a presidential run?
I think she's setting the stage to be Donald Trump's running mate in 2024, were he to be the Republican nominee for president. She certainly has a future. Let me remind you that her father served 10 years as governor of Arkansas. And although we used to dismiss Arkansas really as a major force, I want to remind you, Bill Clinton came from Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss Arkansas, but man, Mike Huckabee is a despicable guy. And that, I'm sorry. And Sarah Huckabee, who carried that water for Donald Trump during that administration, during a time that they completely discontinued the White House briefings, I'll remind you. She comes from despicable, and I think the apple really does not fall far from the tree. Now, I agree with you. That was and I love that Kim asked that question about president, because it felt like a presidential type speech.
Yeah.
And Rothman is essentially saying just that, which is that, she's underscoring the kind of Trumpian messages, the us versus them messages, the wokeness she talked about, even though that Biden didn't mention wokeness, and nor was there even a woke moment in the entire speech.
And did you notice her subtle, or maybe not so subtle, dig at Ron DeSantis? She talked about the fact that she is today unrolling a massive educational reform. Well, who is the Republican potential candidate for president who is touting his educational reform on so many levels? DeSantis. So if I were Donald Trump, I would have been very happy with the fact that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was sort of sticking to Ron DeSantis.
You know, just because you've mentioned DeSantis, I'll just touch on this. Donald Trump can own DeSantis. DeSantis can't go low enough to really go after Trump. Trump will stop at nothing. Trump.
Yeah, well, you heard what I don't mean to interrupt you, but you heard that Donald Trump attacked Ron DeSantis because I guess he was a teacher at some point, and there was a beer party or something.
Yes.
And all I can tell you is Donald Trump is as despicable as they come. Yeah. And may I say, birds of a feather, regrettably.
What John's talking about is that Trump claimed that he was grooming by using alcohol, grooming young people. Isn't that's exactly what
young women, and he was very specific about that. So look,
the pot calling the kettle black.
Well,
let's give me a little bit. Albert, what do you have queued up? What do you like of our last night? Here we go. A little from the
nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one. They're the facts. Check it out. Check it out. How did Congress respond to that debt? They did the right thing. They lifted the debt ceiling 3 times without preconditions or crisis. They paid American bills to prevent an economic disaster in the country. So tonight I'm asking the Congress to follow suit. Let's commit here tonight to the full faith and credit of the United States of America will never, ever be questioned. So some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are.
Stop for a second.
Instead of
Stop
making
for a
the
second,
wealthy pay
Albert.
their
Can you
fair
stop
share,
for a second? I just want to quickly note, that was very important what he said about the last administration and the debt ceiling. It might have been a taste subtle for a lot of the crowd that's sort of I mean, obviously it hits squarely, I think, those of us watching, but he's about to set up a much bigger moment. But, John, it's interesting, and you as someone who can craft speeches and craft words, you have to strike the balance between making a point and not being too over the top by hitting us over the head with it. He didn't mention Trump. He mentioned the last administration. And he didn't mention a Democratic Congress. He just mentioned they did the right thing. I wonder if you could speak to that moment, because it was a moment that's kind of lost in the other moments.
It was very important. And I again, while Albert, thank you very much. By the way, he called me last night to confirm everything.
Albert, thank you.
You're welcome. Went in the middle of the response by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, so his timing couldn't have been better. Let me just indicate to you what the president did was to juxtapose himself and what Donald Trump did. He did not mention Donald Trump's name, which was just fine. I don't think he needed to do that. But you'll notice the Republican response, and it's true. When Donald Trump increased the debt, the Republicans didn't scream. By the way, they didn't scream when George W. Bush increased the national debt. But it becomes an episodic moment when you are the minority or the majority to turn the tables. And that's what you saw last night. So I give Joe Biden high marks for the way he delivered the address. I've known Joe Biden for 30 years. Actually longer, I hate to admit it. I first met him in the 1970s, right after he was elected to the Senate. And I used to watch him at presentations, and he was brilliant, powerful, compelling. And that's what he was last night.
He did have energy. Yeah, he did have energy.
Best presentation by Joe Biden since his election as president.
Juxtaposes a ding word. Sorry, go ahead, Kim. Yeah.
People are talking about how, Joe Biden is an everyman and a seeming surprise that he came out, as not one of the elite. But we've kind of known that about him for a long time. This is a guy who's, rode the train home every night after he was finished with his work in the Senate. So why do you think people are surprised to learn that he's kind of for the middle class?
All right. First, quick story. I really first met Joe Biden face to face when Tom Lantos, the late congressman, was on his staff. When I was in Washington, I would stop by to see Tom, who was working in Joe Biden's office, and I would come in and Joe Biden would be there and we'd have a lovely chat. And then he would excuse himself to get on that train to go home to his kids. I have never forgotten that, ever. But I think there is a key element which everyone needs to understand. Joe Biden is a professional. He's been around the track with ups and downs since his election to the Senate. And he was elected in 1972 and came into office in 73 in January. This is a man with vast experience. And a lot of what he does is based on instinct. Why does he reach out to the Republicans? Because that was what he did in the United States Senate year after year after year with people like Jesse Helms. People who were, I think, terrible in many ways, but he reached out to them and worked with them. And that to me is the essence of him. And I thought he was very cute when he turned around at the very beginning and shook Speaker McCarthy's hand and said, "I hope this doesn't do you any damage." I mean, it was the kind of spirit that I expect. Now, why do people downgrade him? To answer you directly, I suffer from low blood pressure. So I watch Fox.
Yeah.
And I immediately become stimulated. In fact, before I came on with you, I turned on Fox just to make sure I was up for it this morning. But you will note what they do on Fox routinely is to slam the president. And yes, Kamala Harris. We've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. It is an unrelenting blast with no attempt for civility or for honesty or for integrity. And that's why I do not use the term Fox and news in the same paragraph. It's an oxymoron.
Right, I get it. And I want to play the rest of this clip. Look, I thought Biden had a great night, but I think there's a little bit of a, this I Love Biden parade going on here. And as I say, I think he had a good night. And I think, I would vote for him again, given the GOP alternative. And people talk about, well, I'm not going to vote for an 81-year-old. I'll vote for an 85-year-old over the alternative. The GOP, I think, is a poisonous party right now. I don't know. The only big legislation they got through was a major tax cut, and that's all they care about is big business. They don't care about poisoning the environment. They don't care about people who need a leg up. These programs that have worked to have a successful track record of working in America, they would just as soon crush all of them. But be that as it may, Joe Biden is an institutional Democrat, okay? So let's not pretend that he's some lefty. He can be accused of being a lefty. He can be accused of being woke and all these other things that they do on Fox News now. But when you really look at what he does reach across the aisle to Jesse Helms. I don't know if that's something I'd brag about. I mean, there is but then you do have to roll around with a lot of people who are pretty awful in Washington to get stuff done. So I'm of divided mind on that. But just on the Joe Biden thing, I mentioned at the top of the show, and I'll say it now here again. He told the populist message that will cut through. The Democrats, I don't believe that they message as well as the Republicans. And the Republican messaging is all about fiction, but still they message it and say it enough, and it starts to become something so much a part of the narrative that the press asked him about it. He really did get a solid message out, and it was populist last night, John, as I was mentioning at the top of the show. All the things that happened, all the ways down to resort fees. I mean, I was really impressed with him last night in his messaging.
And of course, remember, he kept calling himself a capitalist. And the reason he called himself a capitalist is because the Democrats keep calling him a socialist. I mean, the Republicans keep calling him a socialist.
Right.
So it depends who you listen to, Mark. If you listen to Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and Laura Ingraham, you get one slant. And if you really listen carefully and you understand the politics of it, you understand the paradox of a negative rating. Same thing applies with Kamala Harris. If you are pummeled and blasted by a network that is predisposed to doing that, and you know that more than half of the American people watch Fox for news, then you understand the problem. We could talk about Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity and their absolutely disgraceful responses to the State of the Union. But I've come to accept it. And the good news, I think, is The American people understand it. And that's why Joe Biden is doing as well as he is. One last point. I know we're running low on time, although I've got plenty of time this morning. I don't start teaching till 1 o'clock. I want to be crystal clear.
You're always teaching, John Rothman. Let me say that. Go ahead, John. Hallelujah.
Biden is going to announce that he is running. But every Democrat in the back of their mind is going to think, but what if something happens between now and the Democratic convention? And so you have the Kamala Harrises, you have the Gavin Newsoms, you have Amy Klobuchar, who all of a sudden is being touted again. You have a series of people within the Democratic Party, Mayor Pete for sure, all sitting back and waiting to see what happens. But in the meantime, they will all support actively Joe Biden as long as Joe Biden chooses to run.
Who has less of a chance of winning, John, if Joe Biden was out of the picture? Who has less of a chance of winning, Kamala Harris or Mayor Pete?
Mayor Pete. Let me explain something. A lot of people downgrade Kamala. The first talk show she ever appeared on was on mine. I have known her for years. She is very effective in a certain way. No vice president, and we've talked about this before, can really emerge from the shadow. What I think is very interesting is the Black community is solidly behind Kamala Harris. They will have a decisive impact on who the Democratic nominee is. Notice the Democrats have moved up the primary to South Carolina. Well, let me tell you, her old sorority is based in South Carolina. And if Kamala Harris is either president or a candidate for president, she will have substantial support. I think
you make such a good point about the moving up of that of the primary calendar. That I think that's a legitimate, relevant point when it comes to Kamala Harris's political future. As you know, I don't feel as though she is a national candidate with any real chance, but you and I can go round and round about that, and we will. I'm looking forward to going round and round in the months to come.
You remember when they called Harry Truman the senator from Pendergast? Do you remember the old expression, to err is Truman? I'm only pointing out that once a person is either the nominee or is president of the United States, all of a sudden, everything changes. And I think the sniping at her right now is inordinately inappropriate. As I felt the same way about the sniping at Dan Quayle, who was a very bright fellow and really got slammed by the media. I used to write, by the way, for the Quayle Quarterly. When he left the vice presidency, I was heartsick because I didn't have that for him. But I can tell you that don't count her out. Don't count Gavin Newsom out. Don't by any means count Amy Klobuchar out. Don't count Mayor Pete, or I should say Secretary Pete, out. All these people have presidential aspirations. And so we have to wait and see how it moves. The other person I would watch, and you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, is Hakeem Jeffries. And I would also watch Cory Booker. I can tell you that if anything were to happen and the Democratic race were open, for sure Cory Booker would run. And remember, he has had the experience of running once before. These candidates don't write books just for fun. They write books because they want to introduce themselves to people. And, you know, one of my hobbies is collecting those books that come out by either presumptive presidential candidates or presidential candidates. I have shelves of books signed by people who never made it. But you never know when lightning may strike. Or the
I would love to.
I'd make it deposit.
I'd love to see. Yeah, there are more acorns or more books in Rothman's library from Canada. That would be a good side bet. I would love a President Cory Booker. Would love it. Again, don't see it happening, but I would love to see it.
I just mentioned one thing locally. Some of you remember Willie Brown, who was mayor of San Francisco.
Right.
His daughter, Sydney Brown, who is brilliant and who is about to go to law school, had the pleasure of introducing Cory Booker as the next president of the United States. This was back when Cory was running. And I can tell you we have a lot of local ties into Cory Booker, and Sydney Brown being for him is a big plus.
Very, very cool. That I didn't know that, and that's awesome. As usual, I've learned something. You can find him here generally on Wednesdays when we can corral him. Great takes, John. We didn't even get to a lot of things. We'll put some stuff off to the side and get to it next time.
We
Love
will, and
with us.
please do give your father my warmest good wishes, and to your mother as well. All of you should read the magnificent book.
My dad's a constitutional scholar, and right now he's having a rough go of it. Thank you, John. I got to wrap up, but thank you, Matt. I do appreciate the reference to my dad. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I'm just so late. I love my dad, but I gotta move on. I've got Dan Ashley coming up. John is great, so generous with his time. How do you want to do this, Albert?
Can we do a quick news, and then we'll have Dan in the green room right now, and we'll just get to Dan quickly.
Good.
I'll do a turbo news.
It's a turbo news. Smash the like button for John Rothman. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah, damn it. With Dan Ashley coming up, we're going to be talking music with Dan Ashley. You know him from ABC7. We'll be talking music. He's got a big gig this weekend. I noticed that he had this gig, and I thought we got to get him on to talk about the gig. People don't realize Ashley's he's a three-dimensional guy. It's not just a coat and tie anchor dude. So we'll have him in a moment. Turbo News and Ashley next. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi thrilled with last night's State of the Union address, the California Democrat saying President Biden was his authentic self. She noted that he talked about what was accomplished over the last 2 years when she was Speaker and Democrats were in control of Congress. But one thing she has been brought into this new Congress is the debate over raising the debt ceiling. Republicans would like to change spending. Pelosi noted any action on the issue has to be bipartisan. New information out now on the shooting of a San Jose officer that happened last weekend. Apparently, the police say the suspect was on a quest to kill cops and had been stalking them for hours at 3 different locations. He got pulled over while following a patrol car and allegedly opened fire with a ghost gun. He got away, but was tracked to a nearby home where police say he started shooting again, hitting an officer twice. The suspect now facing attempted murder charges. California losing a record number of trees. A new report from the Forest Service shows 36 million died just last year. That's a whopping 282% jump from 2021 and the most since 2016. Fir trees were hit especially hard, mainly due to a lack of water. A reason so many Californians like to be outside, the state ranked the best for long scenic walks, edging out Alaska, Washington, New Hampshire, and Arizona. This comes from gambling.com, the website looking at user ratings, air quality, average daily sunlight hours, and the abundance of state and national parks. An NFL rookie, Ronnie Rivers, didn't make the Pro Bowl games, but apparently he might have had the biggest win of any player in Las Vegas last weekend. The LA Rams running back won nearly $515,000, a mega jackpot on 3-card poker at Caesar's Palace. Hey, got to win it somehow.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah.
The 24-year-old was in town celebrating his mom's birthday. So he was paid $84,000 to be a member of the AFC team, a losing team, got $42,000. The Pro Bowl winning NFC team was paid $84,000. So that's what he missed out on. But instead, he walked away with $515,000. So
yeah,
hey.
I love it. Yeah, put it all on 34 and let's spin the roulette wheel. Come on.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your old taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the one. He's at 888 Tax Deal and MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Come on, everybody, live from Washington, D.C. It's great to have you here with us. We are remote because I have to be here with my dad, who's in the hospital. He's having a rough go, but I appreciate everybody who's shown support, and we keep the show going with some great people. What a great first hour. And we pick up additional momentum. You know this guy from ABC7. You also know him from prior appearances here, and he has some of the favorite drops that we use on this show.
Thank you so much.
I think
Big shout out.
Big shout out. The Ashley shout out is the what is the sine qua non? I think without is that the you know what I mean? Without, thank you. Welcome him now. He's got a gig tonight. I saw that he had a music gig, and I wanted to get him on to talk about it. Please welcome from ABC7, Dan Ashley, everybody. Come on now.
Oh, Mark, you're the best. Thank you. I'm so sorry about your dad. I wish him well. My father last week just turned 89. Bless him, he's still in good shape. So I lost my mom 5 years ago. So all my best to your dad.
Oh, thank you, pal. It's so weird because, I was saying to everybody that 6 weeks ago, I was sitting right at this table in their home talking to my dad, and everything's fine. He's 92, okay?
Oh, wow.
He's a brilliant man. I mean, just like he's a walking Wikipedia, and he's just the most amazing kind of Renaissance guy, too. Anyway, that said,
chip off the old block.
Thank you. But to get a call just a couple of weeks after I left them there, and to have him in the hospital, and now just unable to do basic stuff. It's tough. I mean, life comes at you fast. So
it
so
sure does. I hope he's okay. I hope he makes it. And he lives in the DC area. My brother and my dad lives in Maryland, actually, Shady Side.
Do they have something to do with government?
My brother, who lives in Alexandria, works in DC, has the highest security clearance a civilian can have. He works for the Secret Service, not protection, but he's also a professor at University of Maryland in marketing and statistics, and George Washington University and Hopkins University. So he's got kind of dual careers, but his main gig is Secret Service. I didn't think he would ever get that gig, given he has a brother in the media, but they didn't seem to care after he went through the background check.
Yeah, you would have thought Dan would have knocked down his brother's ability to get that clearance. That's a great point. Hey, one of the things we talk about with you is your love of music, and you've recorded stuff, and your pals with Sammy Hagar. We mentioned that last time, and you've been on stage with a lot of these people, and you've been on stage so many times yourself, just playing gigs here and there, making music. And so I saw that there's a gig coming up. Is it tonight?
It is tonight. I'm supporting a wonderful musician called Jay Middleton and the Jay Middleton Band. There you see it. He's got a new album out, and they're playing, headlining the Sweetwater tonight, storied venue in Mill Valley, as you well know, guys. And he asked if I would support him and open the show, and I'm delighted to do it. I'm doing it as a duo with my dear friend, musical collaborator, and music director, Bill Bentley. We're going to perform just the two of us, an acoustic set tonight to open the show.
Oh, that's really, really great. Hey, what? Boy, yeah, that is a historic venue. My God,
isn't it? Yeah, it's fantastic.
Is there a sense of that history when you're performing there?
Yeah, I think so. They have pictures, and there's definitely a sense of the people that have been there, and it's just a cool place. And it was sort of symbolizes, the heyday of the Bay Area music scene back in the late 60s and 70s, right? And all the great artists that lived here, many still do. So definitely you get that vibe.
It's funny you say that, because I think of even how the Bay Area music scene is still quite vibrant. And through the 80s, you think of Santana, Bonnie Raitt, who just won the Grammy. Everybody's like, did you see that British tabloid went surprised when unknown singer gets Grammy? I'm thinking, unknown singer.
Where have you guys been?
Bonnie Raitt.
What? Been around for 40 years. Yeah. Oh, so many. Train, I think, was here for a time. Sammy Hagar still has a place here and is here most of the year, or much of the year.
And then you work with, was it Narda Michael Walden that you work with?
Narda, very close. He's one of my dearest friends, Narda Michael Walden. In fact, we just released a few weeks ago now a duet, I should say, called You're a Friend of Mine, that charted a little bit, got a little bit of minor attention. And we're doing it to support our two foundations, the proceeds going to support both of our foundations that help kids.
Well, you have dueling foundations. That's going to be awkward. Okay. What is the somebody makes a point here. The poster I really like. It looks like a Grateful Dead poster.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with designing that poster, but there is a company, I don't know if they use them, that is a style. Like you said, it's that old 60s
Yeah.
Grateful Dead
Yeah.
psychedelic style, and that is a very popular and perceived to be very effective style for music posters. Very common, actually, and it just
There
is.
it is. Yeah.
It's sort of evocative of a different time. It's very hip and cool.
That's right. You talk about and that time that you're talking about. I mean, the Bay Area was popping with the counterculture, and the hate was alive. And wow, what a time to be in the San Francisco area,
Can you
man.
imagine Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, on and on and on? I mean, just a
Yeah.
remarkable time.
My God. What do you?
I wonder.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I
Sorry.
was just wondering if people come see you perform musically. Do you get a lot of people after the show that say, "Hey, I love you on the news," or do you think it's a different audience that, people that watch the news versus people that go out to music venues? Do they know? Do they understand who they're talking to?
Yeah, it's a mix. Usually they do, sure. Just I've been on the air so long here, but some people will come out because they've seen me on the news and would like to hear me sing. Some people see me sing and then come up and say, "Hey, I didn't know you did this. I watch you on the news." And then some people probably leave going, "I heard him sing. I don't think I'll ever watch him on the news." I'm kidding. People are very nice about it, but yeah, you get a mix. You get a mix.
Oh, that's great. I really love that. There was a comment here that I wanted to follow up on. What was it? I can't. Oh, I would like to hear the awesome Dan Ashley's view of the State of the Union address and the Grammys. Now, it's quite a breadth. You see, this is why you should, I believe, have a talk show, because you can comment on both. So, I mean, please, you speak. I understand you can't, because you're an anchor, you have to be a little sort of objective about things. So maybe you could objectively evaluate.
Oh, sure. No, I'm happy to. I appreciate the question very much. I watched both with great interest. I thought the State of the Union, I was touched by a couple of things. I thought there was a refreshing many moments of civility last night when the president mentioned Kevin McCarthy by name and many others and showered some praise on the Republicans, and there was some bipartisan talk, which was at least refreshing. It's just talk. It's still deeply divided. And of course, after polite applause in many instances, everybody went back to their own corners and stood on party lines for the most part. But there were lots of applause lines that I think everyone agreed on. And I'm a big civility guy, Mark and Kim, as you guys know.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can respectfully disagree. It doesn't always have to be so contentious and so angry. So I was pleased by that, just to see that dynamic. Of course, there's a great disagreement on policy issues, and it's one thing, it's sort of a politician who says, I want every child to have a college education. Well, who doesn't? The question is, how are we going to accomplish that?
Sure.
So, the devil's in the details. I also
think, Dan, wouldn't you agree that it's I was just
he had a lot of
interrupt.
energy, and he did. Oh no, sorry, forgive me, Mark. I thought Biden. We saw Joe Biden. We haven't seen a lot lately, in that he was, really present, really energetic for a full hour, 15 minutes, or however long he spoke. He gave a very good talk, stayed on message, and I thought he was effective. Sometimes the president can be less effective as a speaker. I thought he was at his most effective as we've seen him recently last night.
Yeah, and then that's a very tough situation to be as loose as he was. Everything about the setup there is very rigid, and so to come in loose as he was, I was really quite impressed. I mean, honestly, I think Obama was a better orator, of course.
Sure,
but
sure.
in terms of just looseness, I think Biden was actually looser than Obama up there. I mean, whatever. It's not important, but I guess what I'm trying to say is he just seemed far more comfortable than a lot of presidents have been in that setting, giving that statement, that talk, that address.
Mark, I agree, and that was the word I was about to use, comfortable. He seemed comfortable, and that there was at times a bit of casualness to the way he was addressing everyone, which makes the audience comfortable, I think, and he did look comfortable. I was thinking as he was walking up preparing to speak, I wonder how many presidents get very nervous before they do that. If he was nervous, it didn't really show, and as you said, Obama was fantastic as a speaker. Bill Clinton was remarkable. Ronald Reagan, of course, was outstanding in those environments. They thrived. But he had an air of ease at times last night. And he also seemed, to interrupt myself, to relish some of the give and take, the booing and the hissing, and he milked it a little bit. It didn't seem to rattle him too much.
Maybe that's because he's such a long time, legislator, that he's used to being there. That's, those are his people. That's what he does. And so, or has done in history. So, maybe that is different, how he differs from other presidents, and that he has such a long, storied past in the Senate. And
I think that's true, Kim. And I also think we were talking a retired Congresswoman, Jackie Spear, is our new political analyst at ABC 7.
I saw that. Yeah.
We're really excited to have her. And we were talking last night off air that people tend to like Joe Biden as a person in Washington. Most of the people in that room, they may disagree with him passionately, but he's a pretty likable guy. I think most people have a good feeling about him as a person. So I think that translated last night.
Yeah, I think that's right. This is also in the chat, agreeing with you. Lori says this is where his years in D.C. served him well. It's his element. I think that's right. So again, tonight is the performance. There's only one performance. Performance time is what, Dan?
We'll go on at the Sweetwater at 8 o'clock tonight, play for about half an hour, and then the Jay Middleton Band will come on probably about 9 and rock the place. We just had a show the other week with my full band at the Empress, a weekend before last, at the Empress Theater in Vallejo, fantastic venue. That was a charity concert, and so it's just great to get out there. And I was so pleased to be asked to come do this as a duo. There's nowhere to hide. So
no, it's acoustic set. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So my nerves get a little frayed. But
is there an Ashley calendar for the music side of you, to where we can keep, like, if we want to see you at a live gig like Sweetwater, for example, tonight?
Yeah, you're so kind, Mark. I appreciate it. Yeah, if they want to go to danashleymusic.com, we have our calendar up there, danashleymusic.com. We have all kinds of things up there, and we're starting to book for the summer too.
Is there a Dan Ashley rock and roll t-shirt that we can buy?
Well, yeah, just one I made for myself, and nobody else wanted one. I just wear it around the house.
We love visiting with you, pal. Please come back again, and good luck with the gig tonight.
Thank you. Anytime, Mark, you're the best. Kim, you too. I'm so deeply grateful for our friendship and for the chance to come on with you. Anytime you want me, I'm happy to come on. You guys are the best.
We'll look forward to the next time. ABC 7's Dan Ashley.
Good luck to your dad. Good luck to your dad.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah. Thank you so very much. Yeah, right on.
Dan Ashley has a new solo album, according to danashleymusic.com.
Oh, look at this.
What? It's called Out There. Yeah, you can order it on the website. That's cool.
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
By the way, smash the like button for everyone who stopped through today. Pulitzer winner Michael Hiltzik, John Rothman, with a full filleting of the
smashed it with your iron rod
to the State of the Union message. I thought it was a pretty good analysis that Rothman offered, and we even got into politics of some future candidates. Top of ticket. And then, of course, you just saw Dan Ashley. So smash the like button. It helps us in the algorithms of YouTube. And now sting me, Albert, so I can talk to the great Steve Moskowitz.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Check it out. It's terrific. On the main stage, here he is, the tax ninja. How about it for Steve Moskowitz, everyone? Yeah. Steve, so many opportunities. Taxes are something we all fear. Okay, you may not. I know you embrace them, but I feel like rest of us are just really
petrified,
intimidated by it. Yeah, exactly, by the process.
Sure. I mean, it's a part of law that's very complex. You have a giant bureaucracy that can take everything away from you. But the way I look at it is, well, it's part of life. It's like if I was a physician and I say, okay, illness is a part of life. But what can I do to stave it off or keep you as healthy as possible? And that's what I want to do with your taxes. It's a part of life. That's the way it is. But there's two purposes to the tax law. We all know about one of them, which is to extract money from us. But the other purpose is a system of incentives. And that's basically how the Fortune 500 don't pay taxes, because the government gives us so many incentives, but you have to know about them. And the small business person usually works very long and very hard. They get home, they're exhausted, and their biggest decision is, should I get something to eat or should I go right to bed? And to start thinking about taxes or look at a tax code, I wouldn't try to figure out dentistry. It's a totally different area. So what happens, we say, well, okay, this is what we've dedicated our professional lives to. This is why I went to law school. So basically what I want to do for small business is what an army of people do for big business. But a small business, you don't need an army of people. And even one person could be prohibitively expensive. We'll just give you what you need. We want to get you the best results at a fraction of the cost if you actually hired a full-time person to do this. That's what tax planning and tax return preparation is all about. And that's why, yes, we do regular tax returns, but we don't do them the regular ways. We're not just looking to move the numbers from one place to another. We're looking to see how much we can save you. And that's a big, big deal.
It's so, when you say regular tax returns, I think of the process that so many of us go through, which is, this is the way I've always done it. It's always been fine. And this is the way I'm doing it this year.
Mark, that reminds me of an old story where a daughter asked her mother, why do you always cut the meatloaf in half before you cook it? She says, because my mother did. And she asked her mother, and she said, why do you always cut the meatloaf in half? And she said, because we never had a pot that was big enough to hold it. The fact that somebody does something a certain way, before electricity, people used candles. Before indoor plumbing, people still took care of business, but there's a better way to do it now.
Right. And I'd say the code has changed. There constantly changes. This is the point. And Moskowitz keeps track of this stuff and loves keeping track of it, which is the even more incredible thing. Reach Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You may feel you have a straightforward situation, simple return. Check it out. Steve will find ways that you can keep money and even make money. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL, and of course online, MoskowitzLLP.com, Moskowitz, Steve Moskowitz. What's that, Kim? You have anything before I say goodbye to?
I was just thinking something kind of dorky. I really like Steve Moskowitz's website. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I like the way it's laid out. I like the big pictures of him on the website. And I think even if you're just thinking about, should I call Steve Moskowitz or not? What can he help me with? That website's super cool. Check it out.
Yeah, knock around on it.
Yeah.
And you can contact him 24 hours a day through the website as well. MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, love you. I think we're going to talk on the phone later today. I'm looking forward to that as well. So, yeah, thanks, my friend. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Bye. All right, see you. Good stuff. Sting me, Albert. Sting me.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So many people in the chat responding to some of the conversation with Dan Ashley about music. Bay Area's just got such a great history when it comes to music, and all the different venues. And someone was mentioning the Fillmore. Of course, the Fillmore. I feel like there is a documentary out there about the Fillmore.
Talk about those old-timey posters from the 60s. Those, you say, I just said old-timey from the 60s. How old are we? I wasn't alive during the 60s, but it doesn't seem like so long ago. But I will say that it's the same type of style, and they have a huge wall full of all the old historic posters from that era. It's really cool to go there and check that out.
There's that Sweetwater show tonight, 8 o'clock, and that is a legendary venue also. That whole Mill Valley scene, Huey Lewis and the News came out of that area too.
My orthodontist had a woman working in his office who was married to one of the members of the News, of Huey Lewis and the News. And so there were Huey Lewis and the News pictures all over my orthodontist office growing up.
That's really great. And I've told the story before about leaving the Stones concert, going to the Stones concert with a member of Huey Lewis and the News. And I think because he's too up in his head about whatever, it's insecurity or whatever the situation was.
Yeah.
He wanted to leave after just like 4 songs. I thought, and it was even more complicated than that. I mean, my pal was a pilot and flew. He said, let's fly over to the Oakland Coliseum. I said, why? Let's just get in the car and drive over. I said, if you fly, you have to get on a cab to. He said, that'll be great. We'll get everybody. I'll fly us. So all right. So you go up there. I mean, it was like one of those cool things. So we go with this
You're
guy.
living the jet-setting lifestyle.
Well, right, and that's what I'm thinking. I think this is way too rich for my blood. So, but all right. So my date and I and the two Huey Lewis's Mario was the bass player and his wife, and then my friend Roger and his wife. Roger was flew us over to the Coliseum. And you land there, then we got a cab to the Coliseum. So it's a lot of trouble. It would have been easier just to drive. Then we're hanging out, opening act. I'm trying to remember who opened for the Stones. I'll think of it later. But anyway, then the Stones come on, and it's all that Stones energy. And after 4 songs, Mario wants to leave. And because he was the news was hot then. Huey Lewis and the news. I mean, height of their power. Okay. So he was kind of the ranking officer on deck, I think. And because he wanted to leave, we had to. And I remember leaning over to Roger going, leave? Yeah, because he leaned over and he said, Mario wants to leave. What? The show's just started. What do you mean wants to leave? Because he wants to get out of here. Wow. You got to be kidding. No, it was great. It was, again, he was up in his head too much about who knows what. So we're walking out, and I'll never forget the song that was playing. I mean, the lyric that was literally being sung as we walked out was, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. And I'm thinking, wow, it's only rock and roll, but I like it, but not so much that I'm going to watch the whole concert. This is crazy.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
And we got back in the cab, and you went over to the plane and flew back to Marin, where we had dinner. Pretty crarazy.
That's not fake. That's real.
That is not fake. That is real. But that whole world of Mill Valley and good luck to Dan Ashley at the Sweetwater tonight. That'll be great. All right.
Rock the house. Yeah.
There's some Super Bowl controversy, and I'll let you see a moment from this guy who is the center of the controversy. It's an interesting situation. I'll be curious to know your opinion on it. We'll get to that after Kim's news. Albert, is there anything else I need to mention before I throw to Kim's news?
Maybe a couple shout outs too that we'll get to after Kim's news, but after that we'll get to the Super Bowl controversies.
Yes, good. Okay, so we do have some shout outs. And by the way, thank you everybody who's hit us with a thumbs up. That costs nothing. And a special thank you to those of you who have stepped up through our Patreon and PayPal and have helped us that way. I'll acknowledge it again and give you the route to doing that. And I'm going to start acknowledging on the show the newest Patreon and PayPal contributors and those who've been with us the longest. So all of you are going to get your moment here on the show because I think you all deserve recognition along with super stickers and super chats. So thank you for Patreon and PayPal contributions. Kim's news next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Here's President Biden in his Corvette, looking like the cool dude he is. He's on the road. I thought this was perfect to say he's on the road because after his State of the Union address, President is in the Madison, Wisconsin area talking about how his economic plan is creating good-paying jobs, union jobs. His remarks are coming one day after a sometimes raucous speech where he was heckled by House Republicans. And speaking of President Biden, there's a new White House chief of staff. It's got a word echo. That's strange. Jeff Zients is taking over the White House Chief of Staff job after serving as the coronavirus response coordinator. The White House Twitter account posting a tribute to the outgoing Ron Klain, saying he helped President Biden deliver historic progress for the American people. Alec Baldwin back in the news as well, because lawyers for Mr. Baldwin are hoping to disqualify the special prosecutor from the fatal shooting case on the Rust movie set in New Mexico. In a new filing, Baldwin's attorneys argue Andrea Reeb should not be overseeing the case because she was also elected to the New Mexico House of Representatives in November. They contend that's unconstitutional under New Mexico law because she's also a state lawmaker, which represents a separation of powers violation. So there's all kinds of legal maneuverings going on in this Rust case. It turns out that a breast cancer vaccine may be closer than we think. Researchers at Cleveland Clinic announcing they have moved to the next step in their process of creating such a vaccine. The new phase will enroll people who are cancer-free but at higher risk for developing breast cancer. There is one Democratic senator calling for a Federal Trade Commission investigation into a new whistleblower allegations against Twitter. Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut says the new disclosures show Twitter has failed to address serious deficiencies in its own privacy and security controls. He says Twitter's been under a federal order to address those problems. And police in Western Kentucky say a man took a swig of beer in the middle of a routine traffic stop. I can't even make this up. Jordan Craig initially pulled over for going more than 80 miles an hour in a residential area. The officer reported seeing an open can of beer in the car and that Craig drank from it when he went to run his license.
But that doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
You think you'd be trying to downplay that there's an open can of beer in your car, not drink from it while the cop is pulling you over. Okay, so this 25-year-old failed a field sobriety test, told the officer at one point he forgot how to count. What? Officials say his blood alcohol level just over 0.12. So that would be a DUI for you, sir. And by the way, let's pour the beer out now. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses or whatever you got. Steve can help you with it because he's awesome. 888-TAX-STEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Is that what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing here?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
What up? What up, everybody? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We're live in Washington, D.C. This is the home that I grew up in. And, you know, when I was a kid here, I might have given it 3 stars as a house. I give it 1 star now. I know, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be unkind.
The living room looks really cozy. The more I look at that chair in the corner with the 2 pillows,
that's
the
where
more
my
I
dad.
just want to have a nice book and read right in the beautiful sunlight coming through the windows.
He spent many a day in that chair, and then there's another chair right here where he spent many a day. And so, yeah, no, these rooms were added after really I left the house. So when I was growing up here, it was these rooms were not here. These were my dad's idea. He wanted to, you know, add space into the yard, which he loves to, you know, he's really much into that whole world of, well, the trees and the foliage. That's his thing. And it's great. I mean, it really is something that, especially in California with our water situation, sometimes we have to think twice before we explore it, you know. But here there's tons of rain. What's that?
Why are you giving the house a 1? It looks really nice.
I'm not giving the house a 1. I'm giving living here a 1.
Oh.
Because of you know, it's just
I don't think
it's not
you should apologize for how you feel.
Thank
Mark,
you.
could you take out the garbage?
It's not an optimal situation. No, my mom is great. My mom really is great. Now she's great. Growing up, I mean, look, I don't know how anybody does it. I don't know how anybody does anything, to be honest. I don't know how anybody does anything. I don't know how anybody raises kids, stays in a marriage, enjoys their life, still gets to spread their wings and do what they want to do. I makes ends meet. I don't know how anybody does anything. And so that's my disclaimer. I think when I think back on my family, I think, wow, if I were my parents, I would have done exactly what they did. I mean, I think they did. In other words, they took the best shots in some pretty tough situations, you know. So I give them a lot of credit. Really, really cool. So, and that's why, you know, I'm here now. I mean, it's my job to step up. And so I will say one thing, Kim, and I'll move on, that is 5 stars in this house. My mother's coffee, which she makes every morning, even at this stressful time where she's going to the hospital in the morning, and my sister goes afternoon, I go for the night shift. My mother's coffee is 5 stars, baby. It is unbelievable. It is as dark as night. Yes, it is as, I mean, it is so strong. And that's the way I like it. Give it to me just as dark and strong as you can manage it. It's perfect. So that's 5 stars. Yes, thank you. Sarah Jones.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, the Japanese maple is my dad's favorite. That's very, very strong. Good knowledge. I didn't even remember that.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, I got Albert, what are we doing now? Is these shout outs?
Yep, shout outs here. Let me start pulling them up. Here we go. Starting off with Brian.
Brian Vo, he has contributed before, and I love him sending us a super sticker now. $9.99. Big shout out, Brian.
Thank you,
Brian. So appreciate you, my friend. Super stickers, super chats continue. Miguel Ponder, Rothman Thompson 2024 donation, $10.99. Yeah.
So much. It's interesting that they have you in the VP position there.
I was just thinking the same thing, that I'm not top of ticket, really. Yeah. I'd have to constantly be biting my tongue.
What you are talking about.
Yeah. We diverge on a couple of things, but as you know, I don't agree with everything John Rothman says, but I agree with every way he says it. My friends and Miguel Ponder, I'd like to remind all of you that I will come by on Wednesdays each and every time that I'm asked here on the Mark Thompson Show. This is John Rothman. Until next time. Jim Slayton, $4.99 super sticker. What up, Jim Slayton? Shout out to you.
Thank you.
Regular on Twitter, regular supporter here.
Big
Thank
shout
you,
out.
Jim. Thank you. In fact, Jim. Appreciate that, my friend. Appreciate the support. Ruben Corral for $20 super sticker. What up, Ruben?
Thank you
Big
so
thank
much.
you.
Oh, Ruben.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Thank you.
So nice.
So cool, Ruben. Thank you. Can recognize your name. Love that you were.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I thank you. Yeah. Thank you, my friend. Were no British thank yous, Albert? I was kind of waiting for the British thank you.
I'm
kids
not
like-
really feeling the British thank you.
You're not feeling it. Okay, well that's cool.
Yeah.
That's why you're the producer, and I'm just a guy who's
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, rating my room stay here at the house. All right, sting me, Albert, and I will tell you a Super Bowl controversy.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So the Super Bowl is Sunday. Aaron Rodgers, first of all, is going to consider his future, which is fine. But it's the way he claims he is considering it that is striking. He said that he is going to embark on a 4-day, 4-night, quote, darkness retreat.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Is there peyote involved? And
It feels
You know?
very weed adjacent if it's not
Yeah.
actual weed. I've got a pretty cool opportunity, he says, to do a little self-reflection in some isolation. And then after that, I feel like I'll be a lot closer to a final decision, he said. He's 39 years old. He says he's not decided if he's going to play in 2023 with the Packers or with another team. And he could be traded. He says, for sure, it's a real thing, 100%. That's why it's going to be important to get through this week and to take my isolation retreat and just to be able to contemplate all things my future and then be able to make a decision that I think is best for me moving forward and the highest interest of my happiness and then move forward. That's all a quote.
That seems kind of relatable. Sometimes, we're going through a lot and just disappear, go to Joshua Tree for a little bit.
Yeah, and he
then
said
come
that
back to your normal life.
he takes that ayahuasca stuff. He's done that before, and that can produce hallucinations and, another level of consciousness or other levels of this consciousness. And so maybe he'll do that in that spirit. He says it's just sitting in isolation, meditation, dealing with your thoughts. It stimulates DMT, he says, so there can be some hallucination in there, but it's just kind of sitting in silence, which most of us never do.
I
We
wonder how
rarely
much
even.
I want to know how much he's going to pay for that experience.
I mean, I think he's going to be contemplating like, do I need the $40 million from the Packers this season? Do I want the extra 5 to deal with the long grueling season? I'm sure it's like a great problem to have to think about.
I can't argue with that.
He's like, maybe I need to either pick eating dinner tonight or feed my kids type of thing.
He is a big right. It's not equivalent to that. He's a big golfer. He won a PGA Pro-Am.
Yeah, in Pebble Beach. Yeah, he's very, very good.
I've told the story before about the PGA Pro-Am, Albert, haven't I? About getting the invite?
No, I don't think you've ever, in my years working with Mark Thompson, I haven't heard this story.
Let me tell you this real quick. The phone rings at Kron. I was working at Kron, which is was at that time the NBC station in San Francisco. And at my desk, and it's the people with Pebble Beach. And they said, Mike Krukow, who at that time was pitching for the Giants. This is how long ago it was. Mike Krukow was pitching for the Giants. He dropped out for some reason. He had a conflict and he couldn't play. This is amazing when I think back on it that I got this call. And they asked me, would I take Mike Krukow's place in a foursome?
What?
And I said, I don't really play golf, so it'd probably be hard. And they said, no, you don't need to really play very well because they play closest ball and you'll be playing with a pro. And I said, hold on a second. And I put him on hold. And Gary Radnich was doing sports at Kron. So I was the weather guy and Radnich was a sports guy at the time. So Radnich sat right behind me. So I turned around to Radnich and I said, Gary, if I had a month, because at that time I did have a month. It was a month out. if I had a month and all I did all day was work with a pro and learned how to play golf, and I don't play any golf right now except for putt-putt, could I get passable to the point that I could play at the AT&T Classic? He said, not a chance. So I turned back around, I picked up the phone, and I said, when I say I don't play golf, I don't mean that I'm not good at golf. I mean, I literally don't play it. Like, unless there is a monkey's hands going like this in front of the hole, or like there's that windmill, then I've never hit a putt. I said, I'm really sorry. I just am not. But she said, it was a woman. She said, I'm really sorry, because we really thought you'd be perfect and you would have worked in so well. Are you sure there's only, they like were pushing me toward it. You sure there's no way, or is there anything we can do? And I said, I think it would be an embarrassment to you, and I would embarrass myself if I were to do it. So I can't. But that was my invite. I came close to playing in that tournament that Aaron Rodgers won this past year. So he's really.
Know what your foursome would have been? You would have been with obviously three others, two pros and one other celebrity. So I wonder who that would have been. Do you
that's
know?
a great. It's so funny that I never even followed up to see who it would have been. Yeah, gosh, I would have liked to have known that, actually. Yeah.
Well, you should just ask Gary Radnich, because he probably just slipped right into your spot, right? He's like, no, Mark, there's no way. Don't even try it. And then on the other hand, Pebble Beach, I'd like to, take Mark Thompson's spot.
I remember clearly. I did not tell Gary why I was asking him. I just said, could I didn't say, hey, I've got the AT&T golf people on the line. Yeah, I'm a little smart that way. I just said, hey, if I had 30 days, could I get, so.
And Gary was one of the first people when I was working at for Cumulus, that he was one of the first. I was actually starstruck. I grew up listening to him on the radio. He was on KNBR basically my whole childhood. I remember just bumping elbows with him and seeing him. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I'm with Gary Radnich here.
I think Radnich, I was going to say is one. I guess it was one. I can't believe still he's retired or whatever. Brilliant performer, brilliant broadcaster. Just thought he was great. I mean, he understood the theater of it. He understood sort of the showtime aspect, the communication skills you need, the way you have to punch through the rest of the noise. And Gary was funny. I loved Gary Radnich. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah, and he liked to mock because it's sports radio. You got the crazy people, the crazed fans calling in. It's Gary who doesn't he cares, but he doesn't actually care, and he used to always love calling. That was like my favorite bit, just calling out like, relax, we're over here talking about. And I think about him every Sunday, listening to the Niners games. I'm listening to Greg Papa on the radio say all these crazy formations and describing the play. I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about, but I guess I kind of see it, but he's saying all these terms that confuse me.
Yeah, it's true. He didn't take himself too seriously. I think that's what you're saying, and that's exactly right. He didn't take himself too seriously, or what he was reporting on too seriously. So I agree.
Oh, Buck, you can't say that. Spencer got the golf gig just like the GMA gig.
That is a great play, though, Buck. I got to hand it to you. Yeah, Spencer got the golf gig.
Get nothing.
I got nothing. So well, let me tell you about this controversy.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is an NFL player, ex-NFL player, who's getting dropped from Super Bowl coverage.
Why?
Because of a woman's complaint about something he said, it would appear.
Huh.
This is a legendary Dallas Cowboys receiver named Michael Irvin. And he's not going to make any of his scheduled NFL Network or ESPN appearances for the remainder of Super Bowl week, all because of this exchange he had with this woman. She complained about his conduct during an encounter Sunday evening in Arizona.
What did he say?
Well, there you go. Exactly. What did he say? Irvin says that the interaction was a brief, public, and largely non-physical encounter. He said he engaged in no physical contact beyond a handshake when they parted ways. He works for NFL Media, so he makes guest appearances on ESPN as well. and neither organization has commented on it. But all they said is Michael Irvin will not be a part of the NFL Network Super Bowl coverage. And the interaction in question, to Kim's point, occurred in Arizona, the site of the Super Bowl, of course, following dinner and drinks with former Cowboys safety Michael Brooks. Irvin returned to the hotel, and he struck up a conversation there with a woman. Honestly, he says, I'm a bit baffled with it all. This all happened in a 45-second conversation in the lobby when I got back after going out. I came into the lobby. I talked to somebody. I talked to this girl. I don't know her. And I talked to her for about 45 seconds. We shook hands. Then I left. That's all I know. I don't really recall the conversation, to tell you the truth, he said. We were out drinking. It was just a friendly conversation. What's up? I don't even know. I'm totally perplexed, he says. Irvin says that there's video of the lobby encounter, but not hasn't personally looked at the video, but he says there must be video footage of it. And he doesn't know the woman's name. What law did I break, he asks. There was definitely nothing physical. That's honestly all that happened. Nobody was in my room. It was a 45-second conversation in the lobby, a handshake, and we left. I don't know. I don't know what this is, and it's running me crazy.
What does she say that he said?
There's nothing more in terms of reporting on this, Albert. I saw nothing else.
Wow.
Who is Michael Irvin? Do you have the clip of him, Albert? Can you give everybody a sense of who he is? This is him in a famous clip where he kind of is going crazy about the Eagles quarterback who's playing on Sunday.
That I heard Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
I get chills thinking about it. He said, I said to all my playmakers, we cannot just feel the temperature in the room. We must be the thermometer. Oh, snap. Oh, do y'all get how great that is? Oh, snap. All of my playmakers. We can't just receive what's going on in the game. We gonna set the tone every Sunday out here. And then they put that damn tape on every time one of them make a play. I saw Devontae Smith jumping up, taking balls down like he was the 6'5" Arthur Warren Brown. I said, oh God, this is ugly. This is ugly. What is going on? This is and that quote, we cannot just feel the temperature in the room. We must be the thermometer. Something like that on top of them capes, boy. I'm sorry. Somebody better do something about what I'm seeing.
He's got a Southern preacher kind of way about him. Wasn't he a minister or something, Albert? I thought he was a minister.
Oh, I have to look into that, but I know I'm sure he's a producer's dream. You just you just point him in one direction and he just goes and he just performs, and he's like on every show, like every radio show, they have him on as a weekly guest, or he's on every other TV show. He's everywhere. So I could understand why he's so surprised that he's not on the broadcast, because he's probably had a whole bunch of agreements. It's a huge week for media in football.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can see he's a performer, and as I recall, he was a minister or something for a time. I mean, maybe he was trying to minister to her there in the lobby.
So Mr. Irvin has a history, it turns out. Let me just note this. So maybe this is why they take it more seriously.
Okay.
In 1996, Irvin and a former Cowboy offensive lineman, Eric Williams, were accused of sexually assaulting a Cowboys cheerleader at gunpoint under the influence of cocaine. Also in 96, Irvin was arrested in a hotel room that included topless dancers and cocaine. He pleaded no contest to cocaine possession charges and was suspended for the first 5 games of the 96 season.
What?
In 2007, Irvin was accused of sexual assault stemming from an incident at a casino in Florida. That's right. He did not face charges in that incident. In 2017.
Oh, we're not done. Wow, this is incredible.
He was accused of sexual assault as well. No charges were ultimately filed. So I'm just saying, like, there might be a pattern of, you met somebody in the lobby and what happened there might be a little bit.
Yeah,
he was one of the poster children of that time of the substances. There was a lot of that going on and all across all sports, and he was one of them who were him, Lawrence Taylor, Darryl Strawberry. You get go
Oh
under a
yeah,
whole
that's
list
right.
of,
Yeah.
of players who are just known for partaking.
Yeah, that's Albert makes a good point.
Albert, thank
that,
you.
I think that the world of drug abuse ran through professional sports in a way, sort of an unapologetic way, more than it does now. What's happened, Albert? Everybody's more conscious of their health and of being clear-headed. Is that it, or we just don't hear about it anymore?
I think there is. Well, the NBA has rarely relaxed the rules on marijuana use, but a lot of players have been pretty open about their use, and obviously they're going through a lot of pain, so I'm sure it helps. But I do think the performance aspect of sports has just skyrocketed. Like, you don't have people smoking cigarettes having like in between periods or just right off the plate or in the dugout for baseball. You don't see that anymore, which kind of sucks, but it kind of reminds me of like it's just a different time.
No, you're right. All sports has sort of evolved that way. So, Babe Ruth had that thing where he kind of like put his beard down and then go hit a home run. I mean, so you're right. I mean, it has really changed, but that's kind of wild. This is interesting, though, just on the question of Michael Irvin. And this is probably a broader question. We kind of have to wrap up. But J.E. Blake asks it. If it was in public and there's video and he's telling the truth, he should be able to defend himself and get his position back. It's really odd that they just take his job like that. That's why Kim's recounting of his past experiences are not irrelevant. Those experiences are not irrelevant. It's kind of presumed, if you want to put it that way, that we give her the benefit of the doubt more than we give him the benefit of the doubt, since he's been embroiled in so many other things through the years. Wouldn't you say, Kim?
I would say that, but also I'm just further reading the story. There's a police spokesperson in Glendale who say they have no knowledge of any incident involving him. So the complaint was made to the NFL, perhaps, but not to police. And they say it looks like, well, Irvin says there was no sexual wrongdoing, and police say they haven't heard anything about this. So
wow, that's even more, to use his word, perplexing, right? It's puzzling why you would remove a guy when there have been no formal charges. I mean, you could even argue, had there been formal charges, that you'd want to wait for them to be adjudicated before you took action. I don't know. I mean, it's
I also I balk at his description of the interchange as largely non-physical.
I agree. That struck me also. Yes.
Largely does that mean I just copped a little feel and walked away, or what does that mean?
I completely agree with that. And to that point, if there's video of what you're talking about, which is, copping a feel, grabbing it all.
Yeah,
then that would explain it. It really would. And I hate to say it, but it almost has to be that. Otherwise, there's no way the encounter went down just the way he said. We know that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's but he's gone. I mean, he's he won't be there on any of those broadcasts that I mentioned. So yes. Well, did I acknowledge there was? I thought I saw Kevin Hobbs. Yeah, Kevin Hobbs, you are. What can we say, buddy? You are the man. Shout out to Kevin Hobbs. KH here every day, and so generous with your contributions. Thank you for going to our Patreon and PayPal and contributing that way too, or do it like Kevin did it right here on YouTube. TheMarkThompsonShow.com is the website that'll take you to Patreon or PayPal. Thank you. We're crowdfunded, so I need to remind you of that from time to time. Thank you. Also, Wes, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Wes.
Yeah, really, really cool. Wes Terry, great comments and also a great supporter. So appreciate that. Tomorrow, David Katz, Melinda with It's the Planet Stupid. So, big show.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
And Shadow is always
On time. Bye-bye.
Hit the like button like a boss. Go over to Nikki's show. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.